All right, let's jump into another deep dive. And today, we're going to be looking at Keilia and the Guardians of Time. And I think this is going to be a really interesting one because it deals with a future where love is outlawed
Yeah.
and emotions are seen as like a weakness.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it, about how integral emotions are to our lives and experiences. This story really dives into that by showing us these two contrasting versions of the future.
No.
So on one hand, you have Keilia, who's from this society 10,000 years in the future, where emotions have been totally, like, suppressed in the name of, like, order and control, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty wild to imagine a world where people are basically programmed to be like emotionless, almost like robots, but in human form.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And the story really highlights that through Keelia's character. Like, she's described as being cold and analytical. Even her appearance is, like, stark and severe. She's been trained to be this emissary, a totally detached observer of the past.
Okay, so that past is 3000 AD,
Right.
where we meet Alana. And Alana's world seems to have struck more of a balance, right, between emotional expression and progress.
Exactly. It's like humanity learned from its mistakes and found a way to integrate emotions into their way of life. It's like a middle ground.
Right.
And it makes Keelia's mission even more fascinating because she's sent back to the 21st century to study love, which is something that her society considers dangerous and obsolete.
Oh, wow. The irony,
Right.
sending someone who has no emotions to study love.
Exactly. It's such a great setup for exploring these internal conflicts.
Right.
And then, of course, you have Alana, who accidentally ends up traveling to the past.
Right.
Which just throws another wrench into everything. She embodies everything that Keilia society has tried to eliminate. She's vibrant, optimistic, and full of wonder.
I bet those two don't get along too well.
Right.
Clash of the personalities.
Absolutely. And they have such different ways of approaching the world. Keilia is all about logic and calculation, and Alana is spontaneous and emotional.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder,
Could you imagine living in a society where emotions are completely controlled? Would we be more efficient? Or would we just lose something essential to our humanity?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, there's one more person I want to bring into the mix.
Okay.
Ethan, our historian from the 21st century.
Yes.
What's his deal?
He's a really important character.
Yeah.
Because Ethan represents this belief in the transformative power of love. And he kind of acts as a guide for both Keilia and Alana, offering them his wisdom and perspective.
Okay, so we have this trio, each representing a different perspective on emotions and humanity. But what's the bigger picture here?
Well, Keilia's mission isn't just about observing love. It's much more sinister than that. Her society doesn't just want to study love, they want to erase it from history entirely.
Whoa, that's taking it to a whole nother level. But why?
It seems that they believe love leads to chaos and inefficiency. It's like they see it as a weakness, something that threatens their carefully constructed utopia. That's really interesting. It makes you think about our own society, right?
Yeah.
Could we really thrive without love? Or would we just become some kind of, I don't know, sterile, emotionless machine?
Yeah, and to achieve this goal, they're searching for these specific artifacts, ancient ruins that symbolize love, as well as relics from the future that point to its suppression. Each new artifact they find just raises the stakes for our heroes.
Yeah.
It forces them to confront just how far people are willing to go to manipulate history.
Wow, so this isn't just a journey through time, it's a race to protect love itself.
Exactly.
Okay, I am hooked. So what happens next?
So as Keilia continues her mission, she starts encountering other agents from her own time.
Oh, so it's not just her in the future.
They're determined to see that she succeeds, no matter what the cost. But at the same time, Keilia is being exposed to the power of love in the 21st century.
So this is where the conflict comes in, right?
Totally. She's caught between these two worlds and these two completely different ways of seeing things. And it really starts to mess with her. You start to see her question everything she's been taught.
That must be a lot to process. I mean, to have your whole worldview challenged like that.
It really creates a powerful tension in the story. On one hand, she has this loyalty to her society. They made her who she is. But on the other hand, she's seeing firsthand the beauty and complexity of human emotions.
Okay, so we had this internal struggle brewing inside Keilia.
Yeah.
How does that start to play out in her actions? Like, how do we see her actually changing?
Well, there are several key moments in the story where her actions show us that she's starting to shift her perspective. She starts out really cold and detached, but slowly we see these glimpses of empathy.
Hmm.
even compassion.
So it's not like a sudden change, but more of a gradual evolution.
Exactly. Like she's slowly awakening to a part of herself that's been dormant for so long. And I think a big part of that is Alana.
Oh, okay.
Alana's just so optimistic and full of belief in people. It's like she's chipping away at Keilia's walls.
Wow. Alana's basically everything Keilia was raised to fear.
Right, but instead of pushing her away, it kind of draws her in. It forces her to question her programming.
That's so cool. So we have this growing connection between Keilia and Alana.
Yes.
And this huge internal struggle that Keilia is going through.
Right.
And you mentioned earlier that Alana gets captured.
Oh, yeah.
That must have been a turning point in the story.
It totally is. When Alana's captured by agents from Keilia's time, it throws everything into chaos. And Keilia's forced to make a choice. Does she follow her orders and let them take Alana back to this emotionless future, or does she risk everything to save her? Talk about a tough spot, right? Duty versus compassion, logic versus emotion.
Yeah, what a predicament. And it's got to be so intense for Keilia.
Yeah.
All those years of conditioning, clashing with, actually caring about something.
Oh, absolutely. And the story really delves into that, We see her really wrestling with the consequences of defying her society. Like, what if she chooses to protect Alana? She could be labeled a traitor.
Yeah, that's heavy stuff. So what happens? Does she stick to the mission or does she follow her heart?
Well, this is where Keilia really transforms. She chooses love. She goes and puts together this whole daring rescue to save Alana, puts herself at risk, throws the mission out the window.
Wow, that's a powerful choice. To basically go against everything you've been taught for someone you care about. Shows how strong human connection really is.
Yeah, it really does. And the rescue mission itself is pretty revealing. They end up going right into the heart of Keilia's future society. We get to see how they actually suppress emotions and rewrite history. It's chilling.
So it's not just about saving Alana. It's about confronting this whole dystopian future that Keilia comes from. What's it like? Give us the details.
Well, the story describes it as super sterile and efficient. Imagine, like, every single part of your life is controlled. Spontaneity, gone. Even art and music lack emotion. It's all just like cold and calculated.
Sounds bleak, like living in a world without color. What's the point of existing if everything's so sterile? Where's the joy? Where's the beauty in that?
Yeah, and those are the questions Keilia starts grappling with as she sees the impact of her society's choices. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
For sure. It's like a warning,
Yeah.
Like in our world, obsessed with tech and data and getting things done, are we losing touch with our feelings?
It's a valid point. And I think the story's pushing us to be more aware. Are we using technology to make our lives better? Or are we letting it control us, dictate our emotions, and limit our experiences?
Yeah, it's not about rejecting technology, but finding that balance
Yeah.
where it helps us without, compromising who we are.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this story so powerful. It reminds us that love, compassion, connection, these aren't weaknesses. They make us strong and resilient.
Totally. Okay, so Keilia rescues Alana and sees the truth about her own future. What happens to them?
Well, in the end, Keilia decides to go back to her own time. She knows she can't stay in the 21st century. But she's not the same emotionless emissary she was before.
So she goes back, but with a whole new understanding of emotions, the importance of love, connection. What's that going to mean for her and her society?
Right. That's the big question, isn't it? The story doesn't give us a clear answer, but it suggests that things might change, that what Keilia did could plant seeds of doubt, encourage people to question things in this rigid society.
So there's hope. Even the most controlled systems can be challenged. Change is possible, even if it's slow. What about Alana? How does her story end?
Alana's journey is amazing, too. Even though she was captured, targeted for being so emotionally open, she comes out of it even stronger.
It's like her optimism, her belief in people, protected her from the darkness, like a shield.
I love that. You're right. That's totally her. And that unwavering spirit really impacts Keilia. It reminds her of the good that comes with embracing emotions.
It's amazing how much they influence each other. What if they had never met?
Right. Would Keilia still be stuck in that emotionless programming? Would Alana have survived time travel without Keilia's help? Their bond represents hope. Proof that human connection can bridge any difference, even time and upbringing.
Sometimes those unexpected encounters change everything.
You're telling me. And the story doesn't just end there. It brings Ethan back in. Our 21st century historian, remember?
Oh, yeah. Ethan, the voice of reason. He's been quiet for a while. So what happens with him? Yeah, he was like the grounding force in all of this. What ends up happening to him?
Well, he kind of becomes the keeper of their story. You know, he documents everything, their whole journey, makes sure the lessons they learned, their sacrifices aren't forgotten.
That's pretty powerful. Like
Yeah.
he's a guardian of their legacy, making
Mhm.
sure people in the future remember to fight for love and connection, even when everything seems stacked against it.
Exactly. And that adds a whole other layer to the story, right? Ethan's role reminds us how important storytelling is, how it shapes our understanding of the world and inspires us.
Yeah, I love that. So their story becomes bigger than them, a beacon of hope for everyone. And speaking of the future, we know Keilia's society got to that level of control through technology. Makes you think about how tech shapes our own feelings and emotions.
It's a huge question, especially now when we rely on tech for pretty much everything. Just think about how tech affects how you interact with people, get information, even your mood. It's a double-edged sword.
Definitely, yeah. On one hand, it connects us in ways we couldn't have imagined before. But then on the other hand, it can be used to control us, manipulate us, even limit our emotions.
Right, and that's the warning this story gives us, right? What happens if we let technology run wild with our emotions? What happens when algorithms and AI take over empathy, spontaneity, and real human connection?
It's scary to think we might be sleepwalking into a future where efficiency and control are the only things that matter, like we're sacrificing our own well-being.
And this story's like a wake-up call, you know? We need to be aware of the choices we're making, not just as individuals, but as a society. Are we using tech to make us better, or are we letting it make us less human?
Yeah, that's deep. So what can we do? How do we deal with this whole tech emotion thing?
Well, first, we got to be aware. We got to see the potential problems with tech if we just let it grow unchecked. We got to be willing to talk about it, about the kind of future we actually want.
Yeah, so it's about being proactive, setting boundaries, making sure tech serves us and doesn't compromise what's important to us.
Absolutely. And sometimes that means making hard choices, questioning how things are, even challenging the people who want to use tech to control and manipulate others.
So it's not about ditching tech entirely. It's about using it in a smart way,
Mm.
intentionally, and really understanding how it affects our emotions and our connections with each other.
That's it. Keilia and the Guardians of Time isn't just an exciting story, it's a call to action. It's telling us to be careful with the choices we make and to fight for a future where technology makes us more human, not less.
This deep dive has been amazing. We've explored a world where emotions are illegal, seen a daring rescue, and uncovered a plot that's been going on for thousands of years.
Right. We talked about how powerful human connection is, the dangers of unchecked control, and how important it is to think about tech's role in our lives.
And I think the biggest takeaway is that the future isn't set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
We create it with our choices, our actions, and our willingness to stand up for what we believe in.
Absolutely. Even when things seem impossible, there's always hope. Things can change, and human connection can always light the way.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Keilia and the Guardians of Time. I hope it made you curious and got you thinking about this complex relationship between technology, emotions, and the future we're building.
Yeah, until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep connecting.